Mark had always loved to explore the woods behind his house. It was quiet, peaceful, and a place where he could think. But today, something felt different. The air was thicker, almost electric, as if the world around him was waiting for something to happen. He had been walking for hours, his boots crunching softly on the forest floor. The sun was low in the sky, casting long shadows through the trees. It was during this time of day that everything felt magical, like the world was holding its breath. Suddenly, Mark stopped. He saw something ahead, a figure standing in the middle of a small clearing. At first, he thought it was a trick of the light. But as he stepped closer, he realized it was a woman. She wasn't like any woman he had ever seen before. Her skin was a soft shade of blue, almost glowing in the dim light. Her eyes were a piercing, glowing green, and they seemed to shine with a light of their own. She stood tall, her dark hair flowing around her shoulders like it had a life of its own. Mark froze. His heart skipped a beat. What was she doing here, alone in the woods? And why did she look so different? The woman turned her head slowly and met his gaze. Her smile was soft, yet there was something mysterious about it. Mark couldn't look away. He felt a strange pull in his chest, as if his body was telling him to move closer, to speak to her. She took a step forward, and Mark instinctively took a step back. There was something dangerous about her, yet he couldn't bring himself to run away. Her presence was magnetic. I've been waiting for you, she said, her voice like music, soft and enchanting. Mark's heart raced. How did she know he was coming? He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. It was as if his voice had been stolen away. Instead, he just watched as she took another step toward him. Her eyes never left his, and he felt himself drawn on deeper into her gaze. Without warning, she reached up and slowly began to unzip the front of her suit. The motion was deliberate, teasing, and Mark couldn't take his eyes off her. What was she doing? Was this some sort of game? Then, just as quickly as it had started, she stopped. She didn't finish unzipping the suit but stood there, her fingers still gripping the zipper. A soft laugh escaped her lips, and it sent a shiver down Mark's spine. You like what you see, don't you? She asked, her voice teasing. It was both an invitation and a challenge. Mark's mind raced. What was happening? He wasn't sure if he was dreaming or if this was real. This strange woman, this alien being, was standing right in front of him, and for some reason, he couldn't look away. He wanted to say something, to ask who she was and what she wanted, but the words didn't come. Instead, she took another step back, and with a swift movement, she turned and started to run. Mark didn't think. He just reacted. He started to run after her, his legs pumping hard as he pushed through the thick brush. He could hear her footsteps ahead of him, light and swift, like a deer in the wild. But she was fast, much faster than he had expected. He tried to call out to her, but she was already too far ahead. His heart was racing, but not just from the chase. There was something else, something deep in his gut, telling him that he had to catch her, that he couldn't let her escape. He pushed harder, jumping over fallen logs and weaving around trees. The adrenaline flooded his body, making him feel alive in a way he hadn't felt in years. The world around him blurred, his focus completely on the woman ahead. She was fast, but Mark was determined. He wasn't going to lose her. As he ran, he thought about the strange pull he felt towards her. Was it the way she looked, or was it something more? There was a power in her, something that he couldn't explain, but it was undeniable. His legs burned, his breath coming in heavy gasps, but he kept going. He didn't know what would happen when he caught her, but he had to know. He had to understand what was going on, and why this alien girl seemed to have such a hold on him. The distance between them was closing, but just as Mark thought he was getting close, she vanished into the trees. He skidded to a stop, breathing heavily, scanning the woods around him. She was gone. For a moment, he stood there, confused. Where had she gone? Had he imagined it all? But then, he saw it, her footprints in the dirt, leading into the woods. She wasn't gone. She was waiting for him. Mark didn't hesitate. He followed the trail, his determination only growing stronger. He had to know who she was, and what she wanted from him. He couldn't stop now. Not when he was so close that as he pushed through the trees, he knew one thing for sure, this chase was just beginning, and he wouldn't stop until he caught her. Mark's heart pounded in his chest, but it wasn't just from the run. It was the strange, inexplicable pull that was drawing him deeper into the forest, further away from everything he knew. He had always been curious, but this was different. This was dangerous. He scanned the woods around him, looking for any sign of her. The girl had vanished like smoke, but her scent lingered in the air, something sweet and electric. His mind raced, replaying the way she had looked at him, how her smile had made his skin tingle. She's just a trick, Mark told himself, trying to steady his thoughts. There's no way she's real. But his body disagreed. Every step he took, every breath, only seemed to pull him further into the unknown. He couldn't shake the feeling that she was out there, watching him. He had to find her. He just had to. Mark took another step, his eyes darting back and forth between the shadows of the trees. The light was quickly fading, but the trail was still clear. Her footprints were unmistakable, light and delicate, but with purpose. She wasn't running aimlessly. No, she was leading him somewhere. He quickened his pace, weaving through the underbrush. The farther he went, the quieter the forest seemed to get. Even the usual evening noises, the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves, had stopped. It was as if the entire forest was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen, and then, he heard it. A soft, melodic laugh echoed through the trees, followed by the sound of someone, moving just ahead. Mark froze, his heart leaping into his throat. The laugh was unmistakable. It was her. Without thinking, he darted forward, moving faster than he had before. The trees blurred as he pushed through, sweat stinging his eyes. The air felt colder now, a chill running through him as the shadows deepened. Mark spotted her in the distance, her glowing figure barely visible in the twilight. She was fast, too fast. But this time, he wasn't going to let her slip away. He pushed harder, his legs burning, but he didn't care. He had to catch her. He had to know what she wanted from him, and then, just as he thought he was almost there, she turned. In one fluid motion, the alien girl looked back, her eyes glowing brighter than before. She didn't speak, but Mark could feel her gaze pierce him, like she was reading his every thought. Her smile was still there, but now it was different, more knowing, more dangerous. With a sudden flick of her wrist, she disappeared into the trees again, vanishing without a trace. Mark stopped dead in his tracks, panting. This time, the trail was gone. She was gone. His chest tightened as panic set in. How could she move that fast? How had she done that? He stood there, listening to the stillness, hoping for any sign of her presence. But the forest was silent, and then, just as quickly as the silence had fallen, the wind began to stir. Mark heard a faint rustling behind him and spun around, his heart racing. Mark was no longer just chasing her, he was caught in something much deeper. The woods, once familiar and comforting, now felt like a maze. The trees seemed to close in around him, their dark silhouettes stretching impossibly tall. The further he ran, the more everything started to shift, to warp. He glanced up, and his surroundings flickered, like a screen with a bad connection. For a split second, the trees looked like they were growing at a rapid pace, bending in ways that didn't make sense. It was as if reality itself was bending under the girl's presence. Mark stumbled, disoriented. He reached for a tree to steady himself, but as his hand touched the bark, he felt a jolt run through him, a sharp, electric feeling. It wasn't the tree. It was her. The air around him grew heavier, thick with energy he couldn't explain. A strange hum vibrated in the air, a low, almost imperceptible sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Mark tried to push it out of his mind, but his senses were on high alert. Something was happening, something beyond his understanding. He paused, trying to catch his breath, but all he could hear was the beating of his own heart in his ears. It was as if the forest had become alive, each sound exaggerated and distorted. And then, just as suddenly as the pressure had built, it faded. The girl's laugh echoed through the trees, but this time, it was different. It wasn't playful or teasing, it was deep, almost ancient, as if it carried the weight of centuries. It sent a shiver down Mark's spine that he looked up, his heart racing in his chest. She was standing a few feet ahead of him, completely still. Her eyes gleamed like emeralds in the darkness, glowing brighter than before. There was no fear in her gaze, only the calm certainty of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. "You feel it, don't you?" she asked, her voice small. As silk, yet there was something almost hypnotic about it. "The power, it's mine. It always has been." Mark felt his body grow cold. He couldn't deny what he was feeling. There was something in the air, something shifting, something unnatural. It wasn't just the chase, it was the way she moved, the way she made him feel, as if she controlled every step he took. Her smile widened. "You're not just chasing me, Mark," she continued, her voice wrapping around him like a sweet, dark melody. "You're chasing something bigger. Something ancient." Mark opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The weight of her presence was too much, his thoughts tangled in confusion. How did she know his name? Why was she doing this? She stepped forward, and the space between them seemed to shrink with each movement. Mark's pulse quickened, but his body remained rooted to the spot, as if caught in a trance. "I can feel your thoughts," she whispered, her eyes narrowing. "I can feel your fear. It's not just me you're chasing, Mark. It's the unknown. The part of you that craves what lies beyond the stars." Suddenly, the ground beneath Mark's feet trembled. It wasn't an earthquake, but a vibration that seemed to come from deep within the earth itself. The trees began to sway, their branches twisting as if caught in an invisible wind. The very air felt alive, pulsing with an energy that was both terrifying and exhilarating. Mark took a step back, his mind racing. He wanted to run, but his legs felt like they were made of stone. The forest around him was changing, warping, shifting, just like her. This wasn't just a chase anymore. This was something far beyond his understanding, and he had no idea what he had just stepped into. The girl's eyes locked onto his, a challenge in them now. "You want to catch me, Mark? Then catch me. But know this, the closer you get, the more you'll understand. And once you understand, you'll never look at the world the same again." Mark's thoughts whirled. What had he gotten himself into? Mark was no longer sure if the chase was real or if he was trapped in some twisted dream. The world around him felt like a shifting puzzle, with pieces constantly changing. Every time he thought he had a grip on the situation, it slipped away, just out of his reach. He blinked, and when he opened his eyes, the alien girl was gone. There was no sign of her, no trace of her glowing eyes or teasing smile. For a brief moment, Mark felt relief flood over him. Maybe she had finally stopped playing games. Maybe he had lost her for good, but then, the whispering started. It was faint at first, just a low hum in the distance, but it grew louder with each passing second. Mark's senses went on high alert again, his every nerve tingling with anticipation. The air had changed, it felt colder, heavier, and the humming seemed to vibrate through his very bones. He turned in a circle, scanning the area for any sign of movement. The forest around him had transformed once again. Trees that had once seemed steady now appeared to sway unnaturally, like they were caught in an invisible breeze. The ground beneath his feet felt soft, as though the earth itself was breathing, shifting with every step he took. "Where are you?" Mark muttered to himself, his voice echoing through the silence. A sudden burst of light flashed in the distance, and Mark's breath caught in his throat. There, standing in a clearing a few yards away, was the alien girl. But something was different this time. She wasn't running. She wasn't even smiling. Her expression was unreadable, almost serious, as if she had been waiting for him all along. Mark didn't waste a second. He dashed toward her, his legs moving faster than ever before. But as he drew closer, something strange happened. The forest began to blur again, and he felt as though he was moving through water, slower, heavier, unable to move as freely as he had. Moments ago, the girl didn't move, didn't even acknowledge his approach. Instead, she held up one hand, palm out, and the air around her shimmered, distorting like heat rising off a hot road. Mark stopped dead in his tracks, his pulse racing. He had felt her power before, but now it was like nothing he had ever experienced. It was as if the very space between them was bending, warping, twisting with her energy. "Why are you doing this?" Mark asked, his voice shaking. "What do you want from me?" Her eyes softened for a moment, as though she was considering his question. Then, with a flick of her wrist, she disappeared. It was as though the world itself had swallowed her up. One moment, she was there, her glowing eyes locked onto his, then, just like that, she was gone. Not a sound, not a sign. Nothing. Mark's breath came in quick gasps as panic surged through him. Where had she gone? Was this all part of the game? Was she toying with him again? But then he heard it, the sound of footsteps, soft but unmistakable, crunching through the underbrush behind him. He spun around, heart in his throat, but there was no one there. "You're still chasing me," came her voice from all around him, echoing in the wind. "You don't understand, do you?" Mark stood frozen, the words sinking in. She wasn't just running from him, she was showing him something, pulling him into her world, a world he could barely comprehend. Every time he thought he was close, she would slip away, just out of reach, but this time, Mark wasn't ready to give up. He had to know what she was running from, and what she was hiding. He pushed forward, ignoring the way the forest seemed to fight him, the strange vibrations in the air. The girl was close. He could feel it in his chest, like the heartbeat of the earth itself was guiding him, and then, without warning, the ground beneath him shifted. The earth cracked, and a deep, rumbling sound echoed from below. Mark stumbled, his heart pounding, as the entire forest seemed to come alive. She was still here, somewhere, but where? Mark's head throbbed. The chase, the shifting forest, the alien girl's strange powers, it was all starting to blur together. He had been running for what felt like hours, but time seemed meaningless now. The world around him twisted and turned, changing at will, and he was no longer sure if he was chasing her or if she was pulling him deeper into her world. The strange hum in the air had not stopped. It had become a constant, like a heartbeat, echoing in the very core of the forest. And each time Mark heard it, it pulled him forward, making him feel as though he was getting closer to something important. He paused, his breath coming in shallow gasps, and looked around. The trees here were different. The trunks were thicker, their bark etched with markings that looked almost ancient. Mark stepped closer, his fingers brushing against the surface. The markings seemed to pulse beneath his touch, as though alive. He pulled his hand back quickly, a chill running down his spine. "She's been here," Mark whispered to himself. "She's not just running through this forest. She's leading me here." The realization hit him like a brick to the chest. The alien girl wasn't just toying with him. She was showing him something hidden deep within the forest. But what was it? And why him? He scanned the area again, his heart hammering. Then, in the distance, he saw it, another clearing, but this one felt different. It felt charged, like the air itself had thickened with power. There was a low, flickering light in the center, as if something was radiating energy. Mark moved toward it, the humming growing louder with each step. The closer he got, the more the trees seemed to part, like they were making way for him. It was as if the forest itself was alive, responding to his presence. And at the center of it all, standing in a circle of shimmering light, was the alien girl, but she wasn't alone. Mark's breath caught in his throat as he saw what stood beside her. It was another being, this one taller and more imposing. Its skin was dark and covered in markings similar to the trees around him, glowing faintly with an eerie light. Its eyes were black, endless pools that seemed to swallow the light around them. The girl turned, her eyes meeting Mark's. There was no teasing smile this time, just a look of quiet intensity. She held out her hand, beckoning him forward. "Come closer," she said, her voice no longer soft and playful, but firm, commanding. "It's time for you to see what you've been chasing." Mark hesitated. The presence of the tall figure beside her made him nervous, but he couldn't stop now. He had to know what was happening, what this was all leading to. He stepped forward, and as he did, the world seemed to shift again. The ground beneath him rumbled, and the sky above flickered, like it was being painted over and over. The light in the clearing grew brighter, and for a brief moment, Mark thought he saw something, someone, moving in the light, but when he blinked, the figure was gone. The girl smiled, her expression unreadable. "This is where the truth lies," she said. "And now, you are a part of it." Mark looked at the tall figure again, his mind racing. It was then that the pieces started to fall into place. This wasn't just a random encounter. This wasn't just a strange chase. This was something far bigger. The alien girl was no mere being from another world. She was tied to something ancient, something powerful, something that could change everything Mark had ever known. He felt a wave of realization crash over him. He wasn't just a witness to this alien world, he was a part of it. Whether he liked it or not, he had been chosen. The girl's voice broke through his thoughts. "You've been running after me, Mark. But what if I told you that the true chase has only just begun?" Mark stood at the edge of the clearing, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The alien girl, her face now solemn and unreadable, was no longer the playful figure who had teased him through the forest. The tall, dark figure beside her seemed to pulse with power, its eyes never leaving him, as if measuring his every move. Mark felt the shift in the air, a strange, invisible force tugging at him. The world felt suspended, as though time had slowed to a crawl. The hum in the air grew louder, vibrating through his chest, making his heart race. Every part of him screamed to run, to get away from whatever was about to unfold, but his legs wouldn't move. He was rooted to the spot, drawn to the scene unfolding before him. "You're here now, Mark," the girl said, her voice different this time, not seductive, not teasing, but filled with an undeniable certainty. "And you can never go back." The word sent a chill through him. What did she mean by that? The girl had led him here, to this place of unknown power, but now it felt like something more was at stake. Mark's mind raced, but every thought was drowned by the overwhelming sense that this was a turning point. His decisions here would matter in ways he couldn't yet comprehend. "What's going on?" Mark asked, his voice shaky, though he tried to steady it. He needed answers, and he needed them now. The girl's lips curled into a faint smile, but there was no warmth in it. "You felt the power, haven't you? The pulse of the forest, the energy coursing through your veins." "It's not just me," she said, glancing toward the tall figure. "It's all connected. This place, these woods, they are ancient, and so am I." Mark's eyes flickered to the figure beside her, trying to make sense of it. The being was unlike anything he'd ever seen. Its form was almost fluid, as if it could shift between solid and liquid. It had no expression, only an aura of immense force that made Mark feel small and insignificant in its presence. "Ooh, what is that?" Mark's voice came out in a whisper, the question hanging in the air like a challenge. The alien girl's gaze softened, just for a moment. "This is no ordinary creature," she said, her voice heavy with something Mark couldn't quite place. "This is a guardian, an ancient protector of the forest. But more than that, it is a part of me. It is my legacy. And now, it is yours as well." Mark blinked, the weight of her words crashing into him like a wave. He had always thought of the forest as a quiet, peaceful place to think, a place where he could escape. But now, it seemed as if it was something far more complex, far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. "You don't understand," she continued, stepping closer to him, her eyes glowing brighter. You were chosen long before this chase began. The forest saw something in you, something I didn't see until now. And the truth is, Mark, you have a part to play in all of this. A role that will shape everything. The air grew thick, and Mark felt a pressure in his chest as if the very atmosphere was trying to crush him. The girl reached out a hand toward him, her fingers glowing faintly. If you take my hand, you will have the power to change everything. You will be one with the forest, with the energy that flows through it. But, once you accept, there is no going back. Mark felt his pulse quicken. Was this a choice? Or was he simply being dragged deeper into something he couldn't escape? The girl's gaze bore into his soul, offering him a power he could barely fathom. But at what cost? He stared at her hand, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. His mind screamed for him to run, to escape this tangled mess. But a part of him, a part he hadn't recognized until now, wanted to take her hand, to step into the unknown and claim whatever power was waiting for him. Mark's breath caught in his throat, the world narrowing down to this single moment. This was the point of no return. Everything that had happened, everything he had felt, had led him here. I don't know what this means, Mark said, his voice barely a whisper. But I'm not afraid anymore. The girl's eyes softened for a brief moment, and then, without a word, she extended her hand toward him. Mark took it, and the world around him exploded. The moment Mark took her hand, everything around him shifted. The world as he knew it began to disintegrate into a swirl of colors and sounds. The forest blurred, then vanished entirely, replaced by a vast, empty void that stretched endlessly in every direction. The only thing that remained was the girl, standing beside him, her glowing eyes now radiating a soft, yet powerful light. Mark's breath caught in his chest. What is this? He asked, his voice trembling. He could feel the raw energy in the air, pulsing through him, filling every fiber of his being. His thoughts were racing, but they felt distant, as if they weren't fully his own anymore. This is where reality bends, the girl replied, her voice soft but laced with an eerie finality. This is the space between worlds, the place where everything begins and ends. Here, your true purpose is revealed. Mark wanted to ask more, to question everything that was happening, but the words wouldn't come. The power in the air was too overwhelming, too all-consuming. It was as if the very fabric of the universe had opened up to him, and he was staring directly into the heart of it. The girl stepped closer, her hand still firmly in his. Now that you're here, she continued, you must decide. The power that flows through this place, it's yours to command. But it comes with a price. Mark's mind raced. A price? What kind of price? He had already given so much, his time, his energy. His sanity, following her through the forest, chasing her with no idea what awaited him. And now, standing in this strange, otherworldly place, it felt like the stakes had never been higher. What do you mean? He managed to say, his voice barely audible. The girl looked at him, a deep sadness flashing in her eyes for just a moment before she spoke again. When I first appeared before you, I saw something in you. I saw your curiosity, your strength, your desire to understand the unknown. But there was more, something deeper, something the forest saw long before you came. You've been chosen, Mark. Not just to chase me, but to take my place. Mark recoiled, his mind spinning. Take your place. What do you mean? The girl smiled softly, but there was no warmth in it. I am the guardian of this forest, of this ancient power. But I cannot stay here forever. I am bound to this world, and it is time for me to pass on that responsibility. The forest chose you to inherit this power, to be its new guardian. But the choice is yours. You can walk away and forget everything you've seen, or you can accept your destiny and become part of this world forever. Mark's heart raced, his thoughts spiraling into chaos. The decision weighed heavily on him. He didn't know if he was ready for this, if he even understood what this power truly meant. could he really accept such a burden? Or was this all a dream, a trap he had walked into without realizing it? Before he could speak, the air around him pulsed with energy. The world around them began to distort, as if the very fabric of reality was being twisted by their presence. Mark's legs buckled, and he fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the sheer force of the power swirling around him. You feel it now, don't you? The girl's voice said, softer than before. This power doesn't just control the forest. It controls time, fate, and life itself. It will change you, Mark. It will change everything.